Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I am so excited to share ILNP's new Electric Summer collection. This is their second collection for the summer. It is a 6-piece collection that features shimmery magnetic polishes. As usual, I have my swatches with these. I will be showing them with the velvet style, the cat eye effect, no effect. I also have these shown over black, white, and even some other ILNP studio color creams, not to mention the usual comparisons and even recreation attempts that I have for these. So there's a lot. As usual, I will have timestamps in the description box and I will save more of my thoughts for the end, but for now, let's just get into the swatches. So the first polish we have is Skye, and this is described as a pale blue magnetic with pink to orange shifting shimmer and a holographic sparkle. So for an easy cat eye effect, I just like to hold the magnet right underneath my nail as I'm swatching, and you can immediately see that magnetic stripe form. On the first coat, it definitely is a little bit sheer. You see that pale blue wash of color and all of this shimmer, but it does build up really nicely, where I would say it's passable on 2 coats, but obviously that just depends on your preference. So for the sake of time, I'm actually going to be skipping the application of the 3rd coat because, spoiler alert, the formula on these is going to be all the same, where it is just so flawless, so easy to work with. It's just a little bit sheer, but you can see how much coverage you get here on 3 coats. So now here for the velvet effect, I really like doing this technique of holding the magnet next to my nail while I'm applying the coat, and then just pulling the magnet away from my nail, and you can immediately see how shifty this becomes. I really love a lot of ILNP's magnetics because they have a jelly base, which really allows the magnetic shimmer to move around more freely. So I did 2 coats here and I am just so obsessed with how plush this looks. It just really separates that silvery magnetic shimmer from the red or pink shifting shimmer. It is just so dynamic. And here it is with no effect at all, so you can see how that looks, and it's just a little flat in my opinion. The next shade we have is Lightwave, and this is a soft violet magnetic with orange to yellow shifting shimmer and a holographic sparkle. So yes, I know this polish is definitely giving fairy dust vibes, and don't worry, I will be showing comparisons, but this one was an absolute stunner. It had another amazing formula that was just very even coverage. There was a decent amount of pigmentation to it, but it's still obviously a bit more on the sheer side where you're going to see some nail line. But I just really loved how this one built up. I feel like it's a little bit deeper than the last shade, so I feel like it's definitely passable on 2 coats, especially if you have shorter nails than I do, and it looks great here on 3 coats. It is just such a beautiful color combination. I forgot to show it for the last shade, but here it is with the adjusted lighting so you can see the shift to yellow. Super, super gorgeous. And of course, here it is with the velvet effect and no effect. I cannot get over how well this velvetized. Next up we have Amped, and this one is described as an iris purple magnetic with green to teal shifting shimmer and a holographic sparkle, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, the holo sparkle in these polishes are all scattered. You'll be able to see it better once I do the Skittle portion in natural lighting, or specifically under flash. But anyway, back to the shade. This one is so beautiful, definitely one of my favorites. I love this base purple shade. It is just so stunning. Definitely on the more sheer side, similar to Skye, the very first one, where it's a little bit lighter, so you're going to see a bit more nail line, but it does build up really beautifully on 2 and especially 3 coats. I definitely think you do still see some nail line though. It's not going to be as full coverage as Lightwave, the previous shade, but I don't mind that at all. Here it is with some adjusted lighting, so you can see that shift from the green to teal. To me, it just kind of reads more as like a cobalt blue, but still gorgeous. And here it is with the velvet effect versus no effect, just applied straight out of the bottle. Then we have my top favorite from the collection, Flashing Lights. This one is described as a teal magnetic with yellow to green shifting shimmer and a holographic sparkle. So I would say this has an orangey glow head on, and then it shifts to yellow and green. But I really love that orange is the predominant shade because it just is the perfect contrast against that teal blue base. I feel like it's just such a perfect color combination for summer. So So yeah, I'm easily a big fan of this one. Just like the others in the collection, it had another super smooth, easy to work with formula. It's just more on the sheer, almost jelly side. But again, I do find that these are a bit more pigmented than ILNP's typical sheers, or at least they're more saturated. So they don't seem as sheer as some of the other ones that you might be familiar with, which I will show in the comparison portion. So yeah, here's that shift in indirect light to that gorgeous yellow. It was a little hard to capture the green, but I did see it in real life. And here it is with the velvet effect, which I feel like didn't come out as plush as the previous shades. Maybe I just went in with too thin of a coat. The next polish we have is Power Surge, and this one is described as a lively green magnetic with pink to orange shifting shimmer. And of course, the same scattered holographic sparkle. So this one was another super fun one. I don't know if I would say it's one of my top favorites, but I really did enjoy this shade of green. I feel like it kind of reminds me of like a candy apple, lime green kind of shade, which I think is just so fun for summer. But I think personally for me, I'm not always the biggest fan of a pink shimmer against a green base. Even though I like those two colors separately, for some reason seeing them combined isn't always my favorite, but this one still is definitely super fun. This one had another super flawless formula that built up really easily. It still was just sheer on the third coat, so you could still see some nail line similar to most of the others in this collection. Here's the shift to yellow in indirect light, which I really loved, and of course the comparison of the velvet effect versus no effect. And last but certainly not least, we have Glowstick, which is described as a radiant pink magnetic with a glowing blue shimmer and a holographic sparkle. I feel like it should come as no surprise that this is another top favorite for me. If you're familiar with my content, you know that I'm such a fan of any kind of glowy blue shimmer, especially when it's in a pink base. But I will say that the pink base in this one is definitely very purple leaning, where I would say maybe it's more like an orchid pink, which if you asked me maybe a year ago, I wouldn't normally be a fan of orchid pinks, but I have really come around to them. I think this one is super beautiful, but in a way I kind of do wish that maybe it was a little bit more of a true pink. So yeah, not to sound like a broken record, but this one had another flawless formula. It built up beautifully. I feel like this is the only one from the collection though that didn't have as shifty of a shimmer. In more adjusted lighting, you might be able to see it go to this kind of deeper indigo shade, but it's definitely not as shifty as the others. This one velvetized so beautifully for me too, and I just really love the contrast, especially with how glowy that blue shimmer is. It just stands out so nicely. And here is the collection worn over black, and I want to say I was a little underwhelmed with them. Normally with shimmery kind of sheer ethereal polishes, they look really cool over black, and I guess these do, but they're also very samey. Like some of them look like they have the same shimmer, so the main thing is the base colors that set them apart. So here they are over white, which I thought looked really cute, but I don't love the coverage of these. I feel like if ILNP switched to paddle brushes, the application would be a lot more even over white. Unfortunately for me, these were kind of streaky. And lastly, here are the polishes worn over some assorted ILNP studio color shades. So some of these are creams, but turquoise waters and Malibu are jellies. So overall, I think these generally looked really good over colored bases. I think they just still look a little streaky over Twirl or Playlist, likely because those are just lighter shades. So they're kind of streaky, similar to how they looked over white, but there's definitely potential to use these as toppers. I think they can look so fun. And here is the Electric Summer collection worn as a Skittle. I'm wearing 2 coats of each here with the cat eye effect on every nail. And I have both Skye and Lightwave on my thumb here because I thought the shimmers were basically the same. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of these polishes. I think they look so stunning, so glowy, so bright and juicy. Here they are under flash and a little bit out of focus, so you can see that scattered holographic effect a little bit better. You can definitely see it more like in real life and with natural lighting, but yeah, it's just hard to pick up sometimes. And here's the Skittle in more lower lighting. The magnetic effect, I think, is a little bit more diffused looking in lower lighting, so it might not look as cool, but I think it's still interesting because it almost has this like chromy kind of look, because you can see the base color and the shimmer and a little bit of that silver. And here I have the collection on my right hand, but with the velvet effect, and I tried using a different technique where I've seen people kind of make their own U-shaped magnets by basically using 3 separate magnetic wands and then making them into a U-shape, but I don't love the final look. I mean, it looks good on my thumb and I think on my index finger, but generally it just didn't give me the same kind of plush look as the technique that I showed you earlier, where I'm just holding the magnet to the side of my nail. But yeah, I just wanted to try it out. I know also the horseshoe magnet, which is like the literal U-shaped magnet, works wonders, so if you have one of those, I'm sure it's going to velvetize these so beautifully. But if you don't, then I would try using the method that I used before, because I feel like that's just what normally works for me, especially with more jelly-based magnetics like from ILNP. I wouldn't recommend doing a velvet effect though if you just tend to be in like lower lighting, because it just really looks more diffused and almost like there's no effect at all, which isn't exactly what I'm going for, but whatever floats your boat. Now finally, getting into comparisons, we're starting with Skye, and I knew I had to see this next to Bluebell from the most recent Wildflowers collection this past spring. I thought these were going to be near dupes. I mean, they kind of look like it in the bottle, but on the nail, you can see that Bluebell is just so much more sheer. This is 2 coats of each, by the way. It's obviously missing the magnetic effect, so I thought to recreate these, I can use Cirque Chemistry, which is just a silver magnetic kind of topper. So I basically did 1 coat of that over Bluebell, and it pretty much recreates the vibe, but it's just not the right color. It's just too light. So then I remembered a Pool Party from the Summer Nights collection, which I only reviewed for the first time a couple of months ago. That one looks like it has this almost brighter blue kind of base, where Skye looks a little bit dusty in comparison, but on the nail they were surprisingly similar. So if you happen to have Pool Party and Cirque Chemistry, then you can easily recreate this. I'd say that Pool Party is just a little bit more sheer. And lastly, for Skye, I wanted to do a quick bottle comparison of Shooting Star from the Cosmos collection. I thought they were going to be a lot more similar, but they're pretty different with the kind of shimmer and flakies and whatnot, and Shooting Star is also a lot darker. Then for Lightwave, I of course had to show this next to Fairy Dust from last year's Fairy Forest collection. It's the polish that had everyone in a chokehold, and for good reason. It's definitely very beautiful. And you can see that Lightwave looks almost like an exact dupe, aside from the silver magnetic shimmer, but just looking at the purple base and the reddish to yellow shifting kind of shimmer, they definitely are very similar. But kind of like Bluebell, Fairy Dust is a lot more sheer and also just a lot lighter. You can see just how much more pigmented Lightwave is, but they definitely do have that same duochrome shimmer. Then for Amped, I thought that I was going to have something closer to this. I started by showing this next to Downtown from the Summer Nights collection, but that one's more of a blue-based purple, almost periwinkle kind of color with a totally different kind of golden shimmer. Here it is next to Drive-In from that same collection, but this one's more of a deeper blue-based purple, but this has more of a matching kind of shimmer at least. So for that lilac-y base, I had to show this next to Cirque Clairvoyant, but that's just a purple shimmer. There's no extra kind of duochrome shimmer going on or a hollow sparkle, so I had to be a little creative with layering here. I don't have a green shimmer topper. The closest that I had was Alchemy Lacquers Champ, but that's blue, so not a dupe, but kind of similar. Then for flashing lights, I of course had to show this next to Skate Date from that same Summer Nights collection, and these are nearly identical. They definitely have the same exact shifting shimmer that goes from like orange to yellow to green, and I would say the base colors are maybe the same too. The main difference is that Skate Date is just a lot more sheer, similar to Fairy Dust and Bluebell. I would say that Power Surge is the most unique when it comes to other ILNP shades. Here it is next to Frankie, which is another green magnetic, but that one's obviously a lot darker. It has more of a yellow kind of shimmer, so definitely not dupes. Here it is next to Velour, which is the green magnetic from the Velvet collection earlier in the spring, but that one's a little bit more dusty, almost like an earthy sage kind of green, and it also doesn't have a pink or fiery kind of shimmer. So I thought to layer Holo Taco Scorched Earth over that, and it's definitely an interesting combination. I feel like it's the fall version of Power Surge. And lastly, for Glowstick, you know that I had to show this next to Flower Child, which came out earlier in the Wildflowers collection this past spring. That was my top favorite polish so far this year. And you can see that Glowstick is definitely the sibling, but just like with the other comparisons, I would say that Glowstick is just a bit more saturated, a little bit deeper in color, maybe not as sheer. I think I would say these have the same kind of shimmer though, like maybe the blue in Flower Child is more of like a lighter icy shade, so they're not exact dupes, but definitely very similar. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of ILNP's new Electric Summer collection. As always, I can't wait to hear what you think about this release, because if it isn't obvious enough, I absolutely love it. My jaw dropped when I saw the initial promo email for these. You already know I'm a big fan of ILNP's shimmer formula, and I love a lot of their magnetics as well, so combining them is just a dream. Now, I do know that this lineup color-wise is definitely very similar. I feel like it's happened already a couple of times with ILNP shades where they will release something only for it to be pretty similar to something they already have in their collection. I'm pretty forgiving of it since they have been around for so long, so naturally it's just bound to happen. And I know I also am a little bit biased since I'm just generally a fan of these kinds of colors, so I'm not mad at seeing like a different version of them with being a different finish. But I definitely do think they are worth getting because the bases in these are already a little bit more saturated or pigmented. So if you were already on the fence about any of their other shimmery sheers like Fairy Dust, Skate Day, or Flower Child, I think you might like these because they are just a bit more saturated and cover a bit more nail line. The trade-off is that they are magnetics, which I know a lot of people are kind of over. They admittedly can be very tedious to do, but I think these magnetize super easily, especially because they are in that more like jelly kind of base, and the overall finished look is just so worth it in my opinion. But you'll have to let me know what you think. Obviously, I'm a big fan of ILNP, these colors, these finishes, so I'm gonna be a bit biased and say like you need them. So I'm curious to know what you actually think, so make sure to leave them down below in the comments. And if you are interested in picking these up, I actually don't think I mentioned this in the intro, but these are gonna be available this Friday, July 26th. They're gonna be available for a pre-order discount, which I believe lasts about a week. So yeah, I would love to know if you're gonna be picking up the whole collection, just a couple of them, skipping them entirely. Let me know your favorites or just your thoughts down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.